Hey, Chef Rich here. Today we're going to be making a pasta with a healthy twist. And a little special guest on the side. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. We'll make it fast and easy. I promise. So what are we making today? Today we're making a garlic and shrimp pasta. Now normally when this is made, it has a ton of butter in there and a ton of fat. And what happens is usually when you do it wrong, the butter and milk solids separate and it makes it like a really greasy pasta. I still want the dish, but I don't want all that fat in there. So we're gonna make it really healthy today and we're gonna use a lot of chicken stock instead of butter. So let's take a look at the ingredients. So we have some fresh parsley, we have some pasta, we have some freshly ground black pepper, of course, the only salt we use here, 1 plate herb salt. We have some dried basil, fresh garlic, tomato paste, onions, an ingredient that you might not be used to cooking with, but some cornstarch. Of course, we always have to give love to the green beans, so we have some frozen green beans. One of the co-stars of the dish, shrimp, and then we have some chicken stock, which we made with all the extra bones that we had left over from all the chicken. So you know what time it is now. Let's get cooking. So again, when we cook, we always want to make sure we cook what takes the longest amount of time first. Now obviously that would be the pasta. The pasta is going to take anywhere from 10 to 13 minutes. We want to make sure how much water we have because there is a proper ratio. For every pound of pasta, you want at least 1 gallon of water. All right, not enough, and what happens is it could clump together. And too much, it's just, your pot's not big enough. All right, so we want to make sure 1 gallon of water for every pound of pasta. That's the rule. Now, we also want to season the water. And I know this sounds crazy, but the reason we want to do it is because if I cook my pasta in water that isn't salted, what's going to happen is it's not going to have any flavor. So no matter how good my sauce is flavored or seasoned, when I add that pasta to it, it's going to bring down that flavor dramatically. Then I'm going to have to add some seasoning to the pasta sauce to make sure that tastes good. So to alleviate all that extra trouble, we just want to make sure it's seasoned. Now, how much salt do we put in there? We're going to do about 2 to 3 tablespoons. And I know that might sound like a lot, but I promise you, your pasta won't be salty, but it will have some flavor. So let's check it out. Now there's a bunch of different types of pastas. We're using a whole grain pasta, obviously because of the dietary fiber that's in here. Remember, the more fiber, the better it's going to be for you. All right, so now we got our pasta in there. So obviously what we got to do, set the timer. Most pastas like these take about anywhere from 10 to 13 minutes. We're going to do a little bit of a trick today. What we're going to do is add our frozen vegetables the last minute of cooking our pasta so they cook all at the same time. Now since we got our pasta going, we have about 12 minutes to make this happen. So what I'm going to do is start with the onions first. Now again, first thing we need to do, have that pan preheated. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to it. Again, we only need about 1 tablespoon. Now, when this heats up, I'm going to finish cutting my onions. Now normally we cut it in like a dice shape. We don't want to cut it like that this time, only because we're doing like a long pasta. If I was taking a bow tie pasta, a mini bow tie pasta, or some other type of pasta shape, and then I would say, yeah, a dice is appropriate. But for this one, we want these long strands of onions. So all I'm gonna do is take my onion now, and just instead of cutting it this way, I'm gonna just slice it down. So it's less work actually for you to do. So we just slice it down. Now again, once you get to where it gets a little too close for your fingers, where you don't feel comfortable, all you're gonna do is move it out of the way, push it over, then it starts slicing again. So So we get that in there. And again, one of the things we want to hear is that sizzling. Sizzling is a good sound. That means that we have our pan nice and hot. So we'll add our onions and just give that a little bit of a stir. Make sure you break up all these big chunks of onions that are in there. And just let this cook. I'm gonna turn my heat up just a little bit. Mix this in and just let it go. So while this is going, I'm gonna work on my garlic. Now we need a lot of garlic for this dish, which I love. So let's start cutting it up. Most of it is already cut. I did that before you got here. But again, I wanna show you how we get this done. We have some garlic that's in the wrapper. All we're gonna do is take it. Again, you're gonna put your knife right on top of it. You wanna make sure your knuckles are out of the way, and then all you're gonna do is just give it a little hit. Same thing with the other one. Put your knife right on top of it and just give it a little pop. And you'll see the garlic just jumps right out of the skin for you. Now all we're gonna do is start making our paste. Now I know we've done this all the time, so it's important to review. Knife spine goes on the board. You're gonna put your fingers on top. Then all you're gonna do is grab a little bit, crush it, and then drag it back down. Then you're gonna move it back up again, grab a little bit, crush it, and then move it back down. And you're gonna do this for the whole entire piece of garlic. And you'll see it comes out pretty quickly that it gets all mashed up. But you wanna make sure your fingers are out of the way. Now if it gets too far, just bring it back, pile it up, and just go one more time. Garlic is done. You can see our onions are starting to get some color, which is nice. But our pan is starting to get a little too hot. And I'm gonna show you what we're looking at right here. Did you see how our pan is starting to get some color? Not bad, but again, we wanna make sure it doesn't burn. So if we have to turn down the heat a little bit, we'll turn it down. And again, our safety is always what? Our stock. Just in case the pan gets too hot or too dark, we can always add a little bit of stock to this to really bring that temperature down and prevent burning. So we got our onions going. They're looking good. Now at this point, I have my garlic ready. I'm not gonna add this in yet. The reason I'm not gonna add it in yet is because remember, it has a very delicate oil. If I put it in too early, I'm gonna lose a lot of that flavor. All right, I wanna put it in a little bit later on. So I'm just gonna check on my onions. They're looking good, and you can see they're starting to get a lot of nice color on there, which is great. Now what I'm gonna do is add tomato paste. Now I know that sounds crazy, a tomato paste in a pasta, but what we're gonna do is like an old school French technique, and it's called Pincé. Now, tomato paste has a lot of natural sugar in there, and what we want to do is kind of remove the acidity and really bring up that kind of sweet taste to it. So now we'll just take about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of the tomato paste. Just put it right in there, and then just start mixing it around. So again, working with any kind of sugar-based product like tomato paste, we have to be careful because it burns really, really easy. So you can see as we move this around, it's starting to get a little dark, and it's pretty fast. So now, what we want to do is have our insurance ready. And what is our insurance? A little bit of either chicken stock or water or vegetable stock or any kind of stock you want. So we're gonna add a little bit of that right now. How much do you want to add? Remember, we don't need a lot. We just want to stop that browning process so it doesn't go too far and burn. Right now we're developing a lot of flavor, which is great, but if we push it too far, then it starts to get bitter, and then the whole dish is ruined. So now I'm just gonna turn my heat up a little bit and just use your spoon, and you can even use the onions in there too, and you'll see how everything picks up nice. Now where is that all gonna go? It's gonna go on my onions, it's gonna go all over, which means it's gonna be a flavorful dish. So I'm just gonna mix this in now, and now we move on to the next step. Now again, these are one of the delicate flavors, so I want to make sure we get it in there in just enough time where our pasta is going to be ready too. Now again, if you don't like a lot of garlic, you don't have to put too much garlic in there. I love garlic. And again, for like a garlic shrimp, I think it's pretty important. So we're gonna mix this in. Now, we have rules when we cook. There's certain rules that we like to break, but certain rules that we wanna kind of stick with. And one of the rules here is that when I add garlic to a dish, I wanna make sure I cook it just till aroma. Once I can smell it, and then it's time to move on to the next step. If I continue to cook it and cook it and cook it, what happens is that flavor gets less and less and less. All right, so we just wanna put it in there. You'll see the heat will hit it pretty quickly. You'll start to smell it, time to move on to the next step. Now the next step is gonna be our aromatic herb, our basil. Now again, you could use fresh basil if you wanted to, but again, I would add that at the end of the cooking process. Since we're using dried basil, I wanna put it in now so it has time to bloom and give me all those flavors. So how much do you want? A little bit goes a long way. So we're only gonna go about maybe a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half, that's it. So we just added our basil. Now the same rule applies. Once I add it, I wanna give it a stir. I'd cook it just till aroma. Once I can smell that beautiful basil aroma, okay, now it's time to move on to the next step. So we'll give it a stir. And again, one of the things that I'm always looking at is the bottom of the pan. I wanna make sure the bottom of the pan gets some color, yeah, but doesn't burn. If it gets too dark where you don't feel comfortable, again, get your insurance policy, your chicken stock, vegetable stock, or water, add it to the pan just to cool it off. So we're gonna let it go. Smells great. Garlic is also cooking nicely. So I'm gonna spread it out. And then we're gonna add some seasoning to this. So we have some freshly ground black pepper. How much you wanna add? Totally up to you. I like it a little spicy, so I like to add a little bit more, but you don't have to. And again, back to my favorite herb or spice of all time, my 1 plate herb salt. How much? Just about one tablespoon, tablespoon and a half. That's all we need. We don't need any more than that. Again, give this a stir. Now I'm getting a little worried here. You can look at the bottom of the pan. I'm gonna move this out of the way just so I can show you. I'm getting a little worried here. Now I know when you cook this at home, you're gonna have the same problem. You're gonna see it starting to get a little crusty, a lot of color on the bottom. That's okay, but again, we don't wanna burn this. I have a whole family that's ready to eat, and if I burn it, they're gonna be pretty angry at me. So again, I'm just gonna add a little bit of stock to it. And again, just using the back of my spoon or fork, whatever you're cooking with, we're just gonna kind of massage it in and just break all that up. All right, and again, you see how easy it comes out. Now, one of the reasons I love this is because, you know, I hate doing dishes. And the things that stick to the bottom of the pan really take a lot of energy and work to clean them off. But if I do it here, you can see now the pan looks pretty clean. So it's an easier clean for me to do later on. Or for the kids, because I'll have them do it. All right, so we mix this in. It's looking good. Now we don't have a lot of sauce in here, but now we're gonna start to introduce the sauce. All right, now normally what a lot of people would do is they'd open up a can of tomato sauce and pour it in there. But again, we wanna do things differently that are a little bit more healthy and have a lot more flavor. So at this point right here, I have my onions in there, I have my garlic in there, I have my basil in there, and then my seasonings. All right, so it's ready to go. Now I'm gonna introduce the liquid component to it. Now again, where you would get this if we were doing the regular dish is you would get that liquid from the butter and all the cream and everything that's gonna go in there. But again, we're making this healthy because we care about your heart. So we're gonna add chicken stock to it. Now, how much do you wanna add? I mean, I don't mind adding up to 2 cups of stock to this now because I think it works well. Remember, our pasta is gonna be really thirsty. It's gonna wanna absorb a lot of this liquid or a lot of this sauce to be. So I'm just gonna add that, and then I'm gonna mix this up. Now we wanna make sure everything's incorporated nicely. I wanna scrape the bottom, make sure nothing is burned in there either. And now if you look at it, you can see it's pretty thin. All right, it's just liquid. There's really nothing to thicken it up yet. I want to speed this process up a little bit, so what I'm going to do is add a little bit of cornstarch to it. Now the way this works, I'm going to put it in my bowl, and I'm just going to mix it with a little bit of the stock. Now it can't be this hot stock, because what will happen here is this will instantly thicken up. All right, so I saved a little bit of the chicken stock. Now again, if you use it all up, that's fine, don't worry. You can just add a little bit of water to it. So we're just gonna add a little bit. You'll see a little bit goes a long way. So I just added it to it. I'm just gonna stir this around. I wanna make sure I break up any lumps. Now the consistency. If you put too much in here, what'll happen is it'll get really thin. I want it to be the consistency of like a heavy cream. All right, so it should be kind of, if you look at it, it's kind of like a milky consistency right now. That's fine. So now we're gonna take it, and all I'm gonna do is start pouring it into my sauce and stirring at the same time. And you can see the consistency has changed already. It's gotten to be like a thicker sauce, which is great. Now at this point, what I need to do is just bring it up to a boil. Once it hits a boil, that's as thick as it will get, unless I add more stuff to it. All right, so at that point, we can kind of adjust and see, do I need to add a little bit more liquid to it, or is it perfect just the way it is? Oh, timer just went off for the pasta. Let's go take a look. So we know the pasta still has about a minute to 30 seconds to go before it's perfectly cooked. So what I want to do now is add our frozen vegetables to it so they both cook at the same time. Now I'm just going to leave that in there for about 30 seconds and then it's done. So we just strained our pasta. Now one of the things I love to do is let it sit. Now while that's sitting there, I'm gonna add my shrimp. Then I'm gonna tell you why it's important to let it sit there. So the reason we add our shrimp last is because they cook the quickest. No one likes tough shrimp, so it's important that when we add it to it, we only let it cook for about 3, maybe 4 minutes. That's it. So we'll add this to it and just give it a little stir. And you'll see what'll happen now is it'll pick up all that flavor that's from the sauce as well, but it'll also release some of that kind of shrimp flavor into the sauce, which is great. So we mix that in, and I'm just gonna let it sit now, just for about 2 minutes. So the reason we love to let this pasta sit is because what happens now is it's starting to dry. And as it dries, that starch gets thirstier and thirstier and thirstier. And when I say starch, I mean the noodle itself will start to get thirstier and thirstier. Now what happens is when I introduce it to the sauce, it's gonna start to absorb all that sauce and all that flavor. If I did it right away, what tends to happen is once I mix it in, since the pasta is still wet and the liquid obviously is wet, they don't really blend together. So when I put it in a spoon and I go to pick it up, I have like what I like to call naked noodle here, and all my sauce is still in the bottom of the plate, which is not a good thing. I want it all to be mixed in together. So it's crucial to let it sit. How long do you let it sit for? Now I don't put any water in there. You don't wanna like rinse it at all. You don't wanna put any oil in there at all either. We wanna let it sit for about 2 minutes, maybe 3. And what you'll see is it'll start to have like a little of a dull color on top. That's a good thing. All right, don't let it go past 2 to 3 minutes because what'll happen is it'll kind of start to stick together and be one big blob of pasta. And that's not what we want. So now we have our shrimp simmering nicely. Has about 1 more minute left. Our pasta is drying nicely, getting ready to be incorporated into our sauce. I'm just gonna cut up some fresh parsley. Now again, I love having a fresh component in there, and parsley is one of these things that works well. One, it's loaded with vitamin C, which is a great thing. And 2, it has all kind of antioxidant and mineral properties to it. So we want to add it in fresh, but again, it is a fresh herb. Unlike our dried basil, we're gonna put this in at the last minute. All right, we just want to kind of incorporate it all together, and then the dish is done. I'm just gonna get my pasta and just gently toss it in. We want to be careful because remember, it's starting to dry, and you can see it looks dry. We're just gonna add it to our sauce. Has all our vegetables in there too, ready to go. We're just gonna add this all together. Now again, that pasta is nice and dry, so as soon as we get it in there, it's gonna want to start absorbing all of that sauce, which is a good thing. We're just gonna gently mix it in. Now as I'm mixing this in, I'm gonna throw my parsley in. If I'm gonna mix, I might as well mix it all together. So we'll add our parsley. And then just gently mix it all. Remember, you want to start from the bottom, work your way up, start from the bottom of the pan and kind of just push that sauce right on top. Now what I'm also going to do is shut it off. I don't need it to continue to cook. It's already cooked. But if I do let it keep going, what's going to happen is the sauce is going to reduce too much and then it might start to burn. So we just toss this all together. Make sure every noodle is coated. And you can look in the pan itself and see what's happening. Every noodle now has got sauce all over it, which is what we want. We don't want naked noodle. We want a noodle that's just covered in sauce and flavor. So we just mix this in. It's done. Now one of the things that hurts me inside is that 45% of Americans will overeat in a single meal period. So what they'll do is they'll take this pasta, put a big old bowl in there, and just start going at it. That's not what I want you to do. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna introduce a little bit of greens to this. Greens, I mean a simple, very, very simple apple salad. So we're gonna make an apple, carrot, and romaine salad. And it's gonna be tossed with a little bit of a lemon honey vinaigrette. And I know that sounds a little bit strange, apples and carrots, but I promise you, it's gonna taste amazing. So let's start cutting up these apples. Now, what kind of apples do you wanna use? The answer to that would be any kind you want. Whatever you have in-house, that's the kind I would definitely want you to use. So I wouldn't want to tell you, well, you can only use this apple or that apple. That's totally up to you. Use whatever your favorite apple is, that's fine. Now what we're gonna do is just chop it up into bite-sized pieces. And again, how big does it have to be? That's, again, totally up to you. And I like big pieces of apples when it's in there. It just gives it a little bit more texture. But again, it could be a Granny Smith apple if you wanted to, which is gonna be tart. It could be a Fuji, a Fiji, whatever you want. Now our carrot. So I have a cool little peeler here. What I'm gonna do, instead of cutting with a knife, all I'm gonna do is take my peeler and just start peeling this. So I think we have enough carrots here. And it makes a cool little design on the carrot itself. Now I wouldn't obviously get rid of this, but what I would do is just use this for another dish or another salad where I wanted this cool little groove design. Just cut those and add that to the salad. I think it looks pretty cool. And again, it looks different, which is nice. It gives it a little bit of a fun touch to it. Then at the last part, I'm gonna add my romaine. So what we're gonna do with this is just take it and just slice it thin. That all mixed in. What we're gonna add to this now is gonna be our vinaigrette. Now our vinaigrette is gonna play on all of these flavors, but kind of pull them all together. What we have is the lemon and honey vinaigrette. So what we have in our container right here is just a little bit of lemon juice. So to there, we're gonna add our honey and we're gonna add some mustard. So the reason we're adding mustard is kind of like the glue that holds everything together. So now we're gonna add a little bit of olive oil. Now again, I promise you, this is gonna look like a lot of olive oil, but we're not gonna add a lot to our salad, but it'll give us a lot for the rest of the week. So we'll add about half a cup of olive oil. So we'll just add a little bit of salt. Remember, it already has that tart flavor. So what salt will do is it'll just enhance that tart flavor. So we want to be careful. We don't want to add too much. We just want to add a little bit just to kind of enhance flavor. And then a little bit of freshly ground black pepper. And just give it a shake. And then it comes together in just a nice vinaigrette. And you can take a look inside here, and that's what we want. And you see how it's come together? That's that mustard that kind of holds it. All right, so now all we got to do, add the vinaigrette to the salad. And we just want to make sure everything gets coated nicely. Salad done. Pasta done. You know what time it is next? It's time to eat. So I don't know about you, but me, I'm starving. So I start plating up. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get this salad going. Now what I didn't tell you before is the ratios. You wanna do about 1 to 2 tablespoons of vinaigrette per salad. Now here I have enough salad for about 4 people. And I wanna make sure I get not only a lot of greens, but I wanna make sure I get a lot of apples too, because the apples are like kind of the stars of this whole salad. So next we have our pasta. So let's plate this up. Now again, we wanna make sure we get a good amount, but we don't wanna overdo it. All right, we have a lot of salad there that we're gonna be eating. So we want about 6 to 8 ounces of our pasta. I wanna make sure I get a lot of green beans in there, and I also wanna get some shrimp in there too. That's important. You can always come back for seconds of the salad, but at least we have our good portion of our pasta. So there you go, an apple salad and a shrimp pasta for at least 4 people for under $20. So just like I promised, saving you time, saving you money, getting you healthy, 1 plate at a time. God bless, and I'll see you next week.